Les, you describe yourself as a humanist. What exactly does that mean?
Well, from my point of view, I think humanism is a belief in a natural outlook on the world. In other words, no supernatural elements. So as a humanist, I think that human beings have to make the best of this world. The human beings are in charge of their own destiny, and we have to create societies which have, justice and fair principles built into them, rather than hope that these things will somehow fall down from the sky or be given to us through some supernatural means.
Have you always been a humanist, or is this something that you came to recently?
No, I was brought up in a conventional religious household, a typical home for Northern Ireland, and I suppose when I was in my teens then I started to feel that these beliefs didn't really add up to the rest of my experience. In one way, I suppose you could say the BBC had a large part to play in this. I'm thinking of David Attenborough and all his wildlife programs, which were, as far as I was concerned, totally convincing in terms of making me think that human beings are just one species among many species on this planet, and that human beings have a terrific responsibility for looking after this planet and sharing it with the other species that are on it. So to a considerable extent, although David Attenborough, I don't know if he's a humanist himself or not, I think he made me one.
Mm-hmm. So was there a particular turning point that you recognise as, this is when I decided I was humanist, this is when I rejected? Because would you agree that's what you were doing? You were rejecting all that you had been taught by your family up to that point?
Well, yes, my mother had very conventional religious beliefs, so in a way I did have to go against those beliefs. But at the same time, it was more of a gradual accumulation of attitudes and beliefs about the world. As I say, beginning to accept that evolution was true, that gradually changed my outlook. My father, though, had not been as religious as my mother, and so he used to take us for the Sunday walk rather than going to church. So in a way, he had always contributed to this, non-religious outlook. But I suppose when I think back, the deaths of my grandparents and the death of my father, he died when I was in my teens, those things made me think about mortality and ask myself, is there really anything after this life? Do human beings go on in some supernatural way? And I just felt that wasn't the case.
Well, at times like that, times that are marked with ceremony like death and marriage, how do humanists approach something those occasions?
Well, I think we try to be humane about it. I've conducted ceremonies myself, and I have conducted the funeral ceremony for some people that I knew very well down the years, which does make it very difficult. It's obviously an emotional occasion, but at the same time you do feel that the simple drawing together of the people who have known the deceased, or even the people who know the young couple who are getting married, that drawing together is a very important social event, and the humanists want to have those ceremonies just as much as religious people do. In fact, I would say that religious ceremonies are sort of becoming more humanistic, as far as I can see, because where in the past a religious funeral might have dwelt at great length on the afterlife and on sin and punishment and things like that, my experience of religious funerals more recently has been that there's been much more interest in the person and much more reference to the ordinary life of the person who has died. And similarly in weddings, much more reference to the lives of the young people rather than these other very religious elements that can come into it.
Mm-hmm. What about your own day-to-day life, Les? How do you find yourself sustained by your belief in humanism? What about times, for instance, of sickness and grief, where others might find comfort in a religious belief? how do humanists experience those times?
Well, certainly humanism is a slightly tougher belief to hold in that respect. You do have to give up some of these comforts that religious people turn to. I'm not sure that a great many religious people really believe it to the extent that it's such a big comfort, to be honest. You know, I think a great many religious people are more conventional than philosophical in terms of these beliefs. But when it comes to those tough times, and when my mother died, that was a very emotional period in my life. You rely on your friends, you rely on your family, and I'm very lucky that I have a family that I can turn to. I can understand a humanist who is on their own, and there are many non-religious people out there who've never found a humanist group. They are facing a rather tough journey through life, and that's why I think the BBC and the media should actually be taking a more active role in helping to promote this.
What about your own behaviour, Les? How is that informed by your belief in humanism? How does it guide you through your life and the decisions that you have to make?
Well, I think that my moral principles, my moral views are probably quite similar to the average Christian's views. I think that morality is a matter of people living together in society, and I think that the freedom and rights that I want for myself, they impose duties on me to my friends, to everyone else in that society. So in terms of living my life, it doesn't make my life that very different from anyone else's life, except I suppose when it comes to certain contentious issues. I can understand that, for example, if I look at the Arab-Israeli issue, there's no question in my mind that the Jews have some special right to that land because there was something written by Moses 2,000 years ago. That seems irrelevant to me. So, well, it's not irrelevant, but let's say it doesn't carry a great deal of weight in terms of looking at what's happening in that situation. Similarly, I suppose if it was an argument about stem cell research, I would say that taking cells from an embryo in order to help people who have serious degenerative diseases is clearly justified, and I'm on the side of many scientific forms of medicine, which I suppose people with strong religious views, bringing in supernatural elements about souls and things like that, they would probably object to that. So there are going to be occasions where my views will not coincide with those of very religious people.
Do you think at all that your own views, your ethics, your ethical outlook on life have been shaped, at least in part, by the fact that you come from a Christian community, or certainly a community with a Christian ethos? Do you think that has shaped you in any way?
Well, I'm sure that's the context from which I emerge, yes, so that's true. But at the same time, I was in my teens when I started to feel that I wasn't a Christian, and all my adult views have formed and developed since then. So in many ways I would not accept that. I mean, and I feel very strongly that all this emphasis that's given to the Ten Commandments is actually a very bad idea in terms of moral discussion. The Ten Commandments are really a pretty feeble set of rules. You have a commandment against swearing, when I don't think that's really such a significant thing. But you've no commandment against rape, which I think is a terrible crime. So I'm not sure that religious dogma actually does provide such a wonderful basis for moral principles.